I believe that we're gathered to discuss a topic that is really important for us as a growing democracy. The reason that conversations around information, misinformation, and disinformation, where disinformation is actually malevolent, whereas misinformation could simply be something that's not intended for ill. It happened out of ignorance, or it happened out of people just being careless. But disinformation is a very deliberate and intentional pattern of wanting to send falsehood in place of truth or fact. And so these two concepts are very important thing to keep a handle on. For each of the concepts or constructs, there are different things that act as antidote to them, and many societies are dealing with these challenges in very interesting ways, because they really are not new phenomena. They are not new phenomena. These are things that have always existed. What the world is dealing with is that misinformation and disinformation are happening at scale. So the scale at which they are happening today now creates a critical basis for changing certain contexts. And when they change those contexts for ill, they can be too troubling. So disinformation or even misinformation that's not intended for ill can lead to reactions that then undermine people, undermine their society, undermine individuals, undermine systems, overrun, economies, and that's why we need to pay attention to them. That's my way of opening, in order to create the segue for this very brilliant panel that we've got today to lead us in the process. I'm going to try very much to hold us to a level of discipline in terms of our use of time, so that we can interact with the hall as much as possible. I believe that you are the experts, and so I am looking forward to learning very much from you. And so I would start off with Miriam. Why are you laughing?
Yes. I'm the female here. Gender balance.
No, you were the first person to come up. Was she not? She was the first person to be called up. So Miriam, and you're to my immediate left. And so you're going to start us off with 5 minutes of intervention. What I love about panels is not for people to just carry what they have written and to read it out to us. It is basically that while Miriam is speaking and you think that there's something you would like to interject on, you show that you would like to interject ultimately. So when there is a bridge in between, I can get you even before it's your time to speak. All right? Okay, let's go.
All right, thank you so much. All right, just like she has introduced me again, I'm Mariam Adaruna. I work with CTED, and I want to focus my discussion, since we're talking about social media platforms used to disseminate fake news in Nigeria. So I would like to focus my discussion on a study carried out in CTED. This study focused, we noticed increment in multiplicity of online accounts, online identity of high political figures, current and past, business men and women, as well as politicians and maybe their children. There have been multiplicity of accounts on social media, especially Facebook. You can imagine now, if you maybe try to, or maybe let's look at Twitter, if you try to mention maybe Governor Ganduje or maybe Governor El-Rufai, you will see the number of accounts or maybe handles that will pop up. So we try to look at Facebook. We we identified some states and we selected the top 3 candidates during the 2019 elections in the period of 2018 November to early 2019 January. So we selected 27 candidates from the northern Nigeria, including the the northeast, northwest, and north central. A total of 27 candidates, and we look at their Facebook profiles. The Facebook profiles, not pages, not groups, that were in their names. We identified at least for 23. If you take away 3 out of them, for 23 there were 600 and I think 55. Yeah, I have the statistics here. 655 accounts, multiple accounts. I'm not saying that all these accounts are fake. I'm not saying that they are being created to spread fake news or whatsoever. But what I'm trying to say, how can just 24 people handle 655 accounts? That's not possible. That brings our attention to maybe these accounts were fake, these accounts were impersonated either. And if you look before the election, there were cases of fraudulence with fake accounts where a lot of people were duped money. We can see there were fake accounts in the name of Amina Muhammad, the wife of the governor of Kogi State. There were fake accounts in the name of Zara Buhari. There were fake accounts in the name of Atiku himself and all others. So if you take at Governor Nasir El-Rufai, there were 225 accounts on Facebook with his name on Facebook. For Ganduje is 165 or 68 or so. So I have this book, all the statistics is inside. So you can imagine what could be spread with those accounts. Maybe they created some, maybe their media aides created some, and maybe others, their sympathizers or their supporters created these accounts. But there might be the issue of lack of awareness on how they don't know, maybe in the case of the supporters, they don't know how to promote this, how to campaign for them. Instead of creating pages or maybe group for them, they created an account in their name. Now you see Atiku, for instance, Atiku Abubakar posting something which is not really Atiku, it's somebody else spreading fake news, and you think that it's Atiku. Or somebody writing fake news, spreading fake news with the name of Ganduje, you think that it's Ganduje, why it's not Ganduje. So there are a lot of these accounts. It's my time.
No.
Okay. So there are. That's enough to know. So we try to look at these issues again and see what happened. So we realize, for those, especially these two who have a lot of, the number is higher with Nasir El-Rufai and Ganduje. We realize maybe incumbency plays an important role, political exposure plays an important role, and maybe the political party they come from. If you compare with them with the other candidates that we studied, we realize that their numbers of handles they have are much higher, because maybe people think they are more influential, so they create fake accounts trying to deceive people with their names, and then try to spread some fake news. Probably because there are some situations where Buhari himself, the presidency itself was debunking an account named in the name of Zahra Buhari, his daughter, and then there was a situation where Atiku himself and his media aid were debunking another account in his own name. These accounts were spreading fake news. Probably they might create that account in their name, but spread something against them. Or sometimes they are trying to promote them using false information, which will appear as if they are the one sending those messages. So we looked at several factors that might have contributed to this, which we found out that the government itself, or maybe the politicians, they don't have guidelines on social media use. They frequently change aids from one aid to another. This one will come and create his own account and leave it when he quits working for the politician, and then another one will come. And then in the case of sympathizers and supporters, they create accounts with the name of that politician, and instead of, as I've stated, instead of them to create maybe a page or a campaign group for them, they create an account spreading all sorts of information in their name, which it appears to be as if they are the ones spreading. And then from the politicians themselves, they don't really monitor their online presence. They don't really look at how they appear, even in print, sometimes at these what do we call it, broadcast media. So they handle or they entrust their aides to do all these things to them, not giving attention to what is going out in their name, what is coming in their name. So so these are things we looked at. So we realized also that there is a low awareness on the side of people on basic safety and security online, because a lot of people were being duped on social media with people with this account, trading influence and offices online. Okay. Right.
Now, let's clap for Maria. Look, it's very clear that we were fascinated by the depth of the kind of research you did, and it's something that I believe that questions from the floor will ultimately make you speak a little bit more about. So I turn to you, and I'd like to have you even, agree with some of the things that she already said. Research. I don't reckon that you did any research, or did you? All right, so let us hear your research and let's see where the complementarities exist. Because sometimes these researches go on in silos, and so they don't enable us to even reach deeper than we should. God bless them.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Khalil from CWCD Africa, which is the organization behind Zambia Election Monitoring App. Other than research, I'll also be speaking a little bit about solutions to counter the issues around misinformation and disinformation. Just to add up on what Mariam said, it's key that we do sensitization to measure the impact and the cost of disseminating fake news, and also share with the general public. One of the bizarre stories I've had is the incidents in Jos whereby a group, based on anticipation that they will be attacked, which the anticipation came as a result of a fake news, launch an attack on a particular group, and it caused a huge damage to the society. But before offering solutions, we have to understand the business of social media. They are big on privacy. Facebook, Apple, and the likes. You've seen even the US government engaging Apple to release certain information about certain individuals, but there's always a drag, because that's the key source to their business. So we as Africans or as Nigerians need to start thinking of our own solutions, not just relying on external parties. And one of the solutions is we should look at automation of data collection and understanding the patterns for fake news and fake accounts, because we live in a world with robots and bots and so on. So this is just the beginning of fake news, and it's only going to continue. And you cannot use the conventional methods of physically searching online and comparing. So we have to build automated tools that will check the different patterns and quickly identify the likes of this. Secondly, anyone that is releasing fake news or an information has to have a reason behind it, whether it's personal interest or it's political godfather and so on. So there's always a price to things like that. And we know that we've seen how reviews have greatly changed the dynamics in the e-world. most of you that have taken Uber rides, you see drivers begging for a good rating. So once we start to have rating systems for different media outlets and influencers, that will go a long way, because for whatever reason they want to spread the news, once they start to get bad rating, it also eats up their final agenda. So people will become cautious of spreading things like that. Another thing we have to look at is digital security. For example, if you go and spread the news about me eating amala, people that know me well knows that probably I've never tried it. So people that spread fake news usually do a background check on the person that they're going to spread the news on, or on the society, or whatever. And one of the easy ways of getting background information is by having a security break, checking your emails. We've had the recent news going on of scammers sending emails through certain channels instructing a department to transfer certain amount of money. But before you do that, you have to know background information, you have to know the way the person talks, you have to know the way the person dresses. So we have to be big on digital security, what kind of information we put out there online, and also what measures we are taking. For example, there are a lot of people who have been receiving messages from banks, emails saying, okay, your token is about to expire, and so on and so forth. But if the email comes with a blue banner and it says it's coming from GT Bank, automatically I know, it's a scam. So for whoever is going to create something like that, has to do a background check. And the more you penetrate into systems like that to gather as much information, the easier it is to convince someone of the information you are trying to set out. And another thing to look at is social credit system. Now we've had the story of what's happening in China, whereby even if you are going to get a loan from the bank, or you're going to interact, or you're going to get a job, they check they're trying to implement a social credit system. Now people are more and more conscious about their reputation than any other thing. And once we have a system like that in place, and I know that spreading wrong information, might risk other things I do, whether business or career-wise, and people can have access to that kind of credit system and rate me based on that, and decide whether they want to interact or do business with me. It will go a long way into countering this kind of activities. So whatever technologies we are going to use, we should target technologies that share the same interest with the person that is trying to promote this kind of information, wrong information, so that we are all on the same court, and is a great way of cracking down on activities like that.
Thank you so very much, Khalil. Thank you. Very, very interesting. So he started off by saying he's going to tell us a lot about solutions. This is quite complimentary. So Miriam starts off by telling us what the kind of thing that they actually gathered by just looking at the pattern that's emerging. To think that 665 accounts were opened on Facebook for just 24 politicians. I mean, that's an overkill, isn't it? It's almost like when we get a hold of anything, we just take it to the limit. Because 24 politicians, 665 Facebook accounts. Then Khalil takes on and begins to give us some very strong solutions. One of the things that you said, by the way, when you see me working on this, I am not checking my mails, I'm taking my notes. I know that some of you only know how to call with your phone. I wish you would realize that there's much more value to that phone you're holding than just making phone calls. Some of the solutions that he put up, like talking about the automation of data collection, instead of just the manual way of following the patterns that are revealed, that's a very interesting one. But in an environment where we're only just getting to the place where people actually even bother to integrate into the world of tech, that definitely is something for the public sector which is crucial in this conversation to participate in. And another thing that you said about the reviews and the ratings for media outlets, I am huge on that one. Now, maybe that's where I'm going to ask you to start from, even before you begin to give us your own points, my dear friend. If in this country where people tend to have a position that no matter what rating you give to a particular news house, if there is some ethnic dimension to it, and they say, no, it's our enemies that are rating us like that, do you think that this kind of a solution would work, or would something slightly variated from it work? And this plus all the other solutions that you've come along with. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm Abdullahi Mohammed, the State Director, National Reputation Agency, Kogi State Directorate. My organization is, communication organization, and we are in the local with the people, community people, and we feel their impact. And when you talk about ethnicity and the hate speeches, definitely at the rural area, it's place because the person that is giving the information matters. They want to know, is that person our own? Are we from the same clan? Are we from the? They look at the history. Have we been friendly? Have they been friendly with us in the past or not? They look at all this before they start taking such information, whether it is true or not. And it will only help them in a way, tune them into taking a decision, so that they can work with it. When we in the National Agency, one of our mandate is to promote core values by embarking on value orientation programs, because we believe when you talk of the misinformation, disinformation, it still borders on our national core values as enshrined in Section 2, Chapter 2, Section 2 of the National Constitution. So we have these things borders on our core values, and we, National Reputation Agency, that is going to be our own solution to this problem. We are looking at the way forward. How can we stem this tide? How can we reduce these cases of misinformation and disinformation, particularly in rural areas where you have a lot of high level of illiteracy? So again, NOAA is so positioned as an organization in the state that we have a COMO in each local government area, and we as staff of NOA, when a program comes up like this, the first thing we look at, let us identify the problem. What strategy are we going to use? What networking are we going to make sure that we solve this problem? Then we now come up implementation of the programs. So as we are here, I expect every organization to start thinking of what can we do as an organization so that this program can be implemented, so that it's not just be like another talk shop. So that is the way we are looking at, and I expect every organization to come up with a program of action. Like we know, we are thinking of legislation, paying advocacy to the State Assembly to pass legislation on this misinformation, fake information, and disinformation. It's very important so that if you know you'll be punished if you err, definitely people more careful. People just give people any information they just want. And again, last time CDD came to local yard to train some of our staff on fake news, disinformation. And again, we already created a platform to confirm whether the news coming out are actually authentic or not. Like this morning, they sent a message to me to please confirm that they heard that apart from the 4 governorship candidates already screened for election coming up in November, that they had the additional 5 have been screened again. So I was here, I did my confirmation and posted it again to them so that we can disseminate to the people. So people believe in us that at state level, when there's information, particularly from local government, the first thing they do is to get the contractor first. Please, it is correct. And within 10 minutes, we'll get back response to them because our commons are online, they are on social media, and the report they are getting to us is online also. So we are already working on this project, and I expect every organization to do same. We will have a program called Campus Focus. This program is targeted, on the youth, the students, because they make use of, they use a lot of, they engage social media so much, and that they believe any information they get as authentic. So they are our target audience because they constitute a very high percentage.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director of Kogi NOA. Please clap. Let me just, as a matter of feedback, how many of you know that NOA is doing some really good work in the country? You didn't know. I'm just, sort of trying to make sure that, how many of you know? Let's just see hands that are up. Okay, so maybe about 20% of the people in this hall know that NOA is doing some good work, specifically even in the area of providing solutions to fake news. What he said about authentication platform caught my attention, because it is one of the things that you do need, a clearinghouse sort of place, a system that enables people to quickly check news before becoming distributors of it. The reason that the social media has this enormous power that we're discussing today is because it is ubiquitous, isn't it? It is quite ubiquitous. So one thing that just travels off will travel through so many, millions of people, almost instantaneously. So if we do have a system and it is NOA that has an authentication platform, it definitely is something that is worth checking out, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. So that's something that came out of Abdullahi's presentation. And then Abdullahi said something about legislation. I'm getting a bit weary of legislation as solution anytime that we speak, because we are the most legislated environment. Forgive me for this phone this call that is ringing. I just hope it's not that the other meeting is upon me. Okay, no, this is right. So we're the most legislated environment in a number of aspects of society. And yet, those legislations are as good as, non-existent, because the power to enforce, the capacity to enforce, the resources of enforcement, and the fidelity to the spirit and intent and content of the legislation is lacking. And so when people quickly say solution, legislation, I'm not usually anymore as excited as I used to be when I was younger. I'm not saying that age brings cynicism. I'm just saying that I'm just saying that we need to dig further to see how it can go beyond legislation as an antidote. And that leaves you, my dear friend. So we're going to hear your own, and please speak on some of the things that you've already said.
Outside, there are institutions, and that is where what we are. We're talking about institutionalizing. There should be an institution that will handle all the social media networks and would be able to identify and as well sanction if possible. How do we definitely counter? We need to regulate, we need to check, we need to penetrate. And interestingly, it is the civil society that are championing this move of countering misinformation and disinformation. Apart from the fact that National Orientation Agency in 2015 election, we were out campaigning and sensitizing people about hate speeches and issue-based campaigns, which is part of our mandate. Is at the public forum now, and so many persons are concerned that fake news will actually cause, more especially like Kogi elections and Bayelsa elections, fake news will be at play. And if nothing is done, and that is why we are here to confer solutions and try to tinker around what we are going to do to ensure that the effects and impact of fake news will be danced so that the violence that would emanate from such misinformation will not be there. Now, for National Orientation Agency, I joined with my colleague. We also have other entry methods. We engage the little gatherings or small gatherings of palm wine drinkers, where we have those who call themselves local BBC, local CNN, and all that. We engage them, giving them the correct information at the right time as we get the information. So we are always there because our offices are in all the local government areas of the country, the 774 local government areas. We are advantaged to reach out to the grassroots. We engage in most of this information, like in Bayelsa State, is at the waterfronts. At the waterfronts, where the jetties, where boats beds and live. And where once you drop an information, in the next 1 hour, it is far into the hinterland. So we also adopt those approaches. And for us, we are ever ready to ensure that we reach out to the grassroots with the right information. We have been told that it is better for the truth of every wrong information or misinformation to come on time, or an information that is correct should go ahead before the fake news. So it is easier for us to correct by amplifying the facts of the situation. And we do not unlike checking alone, but we do checking by trying to find out the truth wherever the information comes, because we are on ground. As soon as we have an information, we call the person that is there to give us a situation report, on the spot report, and that enhances our methods of trying to dance misinformation and fake news. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Director Ide, for the work that you shared with us. Yes, please.
You see, this fake news and misinformation is affecting the entire fabric of society, including marriage. Yes, so that's why we believe effective communication is equally very, very important in our homes. The way we communicate with our children, the message you send to them, and make sure that there is a feedback mechanism. So we have to look at it very well. And again, I want to advise every organization to have a social media outfit so that as soon as information is received, it can, if it is fake, can let be countered rather than waiting until the fake information is already spread. Because most ministries and departments and agencies, they tie down information and therefore creating room for fake news to flourish. And again, as an organization, we are taking this freedom of information to the public for more sensitization and even the government agencies. Thank you.